link launch out. Sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Abbas.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Very good morning, sir. How are you, sir?
Nice.
Santosh.
Pleasure meeting you.
Yes. Okay, sir.
Santosh.
Sir, follow, sir.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. This much volume okay?
Okay, sir.
Should I increase or it's okay?
Oh, everything is okay, sir.
Yeah, fine. That's great.
Yes, sir. So now you can share your screen whether it's working as
Host
record பண்ண சொல்லிருங்க.
Okay, sir. Okay.
host disabled screen sharing.
wait.
Wait a minute, sir. Wait a minute.
Yeah, please.
Now you can share, sir.
சந்தோஷ்.
Sir, சொல்லுங்க sir.
இந்த ஜெயக்குமாரியை உள்ள அகாமடேட் பண்ணுங்க.
Okay, sir.
அவங்க வெளியில நிக்கறாங்க.
Okay, sir.
அவங்க ஹஸ்பண்ட் நம்பர்ல வருவாங்க.
Name, sir.
ஜெய பால்ராஜ் வருதா?
ஜெய பால்ராஜ்.
பால்ராஜ்னு சொல்றேன். ஜெயக்குமாரி ஹலோ
சார் செக் பண்ணிக்கோங்க.
இந்த one second.
அந்த யூடியூப் அனுப்பியிருக்கிறேன் சார். யூடியூப்ல பாருங்க. அதுல இதுல உள்ள வரலன்னா யூடியூப்ல உள்ள போங்க. அதுவும் டைரக்டரியில தான். இல்ல இப்ப வந்து யூடியூப் லிங்க் போட்டிருக்கோம் பாருங்க. அதுவும் டைரக்டரியில தான். டைரக்டரியில தான் யூடியூப்ல லிங்க் வந்துருச்சா? யூடியூப் லிங்க் வந்துருச்சா?
Yes, sir. கொடுங்க.
அதை கிளிக் பண்ணுங்க. அதுவும் டைரக்டரியில தான்.
Dr. Santosh, okay?
Sir, share
My screen?
No, sir. Your screen is not shown here.
It's coming.
not coming, sir.
I see. Okay. One second.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now visible, sir.
Now visible, sir.
Was it okay?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
ஜெயக்குமாரி உள்ள வந்துட்டாங்களா?
No, sir. அவருக்கு நேம்ஸ் இல்லைங்க சார். அந்த பேர் என்ன
அந்த
பேர்?
பேர் இல்லைங்க சார்.
அவர் ஜெயபால் இது இருங்க லைட்டா கேட்டுறேன்.
ஓகே கேட்டாங்க சார்.
ஜாய்
ஜெய கணேஷ் தான்.
அவர் பேர் என்ன இருக்கும் போன்ல? பால்ராஜ் வந்திருக்க பாருங்க.
பால்ராஜ். ஓகே, செக் பண்றேன் சார்.
பால்ராஜ் இல்ல ஜெயக்குமாரி ஞான தீபம் அது ரெண்டுல ஏதாவது ஒன்று பாருங்க.
அவங்களுக்கு என்ன மெசேஜ் சார் வருதுங்களா? நம்பர் வாங்கிட்டு அவர் மேம்.
அவங்களுக்கு 100 பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட் வந்துட்டாங்க வருதான்.
சந்தோஷ் ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேர் ஆகுதா?
ஷேர் ஆகுதுங்க சார்.
அந்த இது ரிப்பிள் மாதிரி வருதா? வாட்டர் ரிப்பிள் மாதிரி
வருதுங்க சார். அப்ஜெக்டிவ் இன் தி ஹிஸ்டாரிக்கல் ரேட்டிங்ஸ்.
எஸ், தட்ஸ் கிரேட். அடுத்த ஸ்லைடு. இந்த படம் ஒன்னு போட்டுக்கணும்.
படத்துல தான் சார். இப்ப அந்த ஸ்கிரீன் தான் சார். நெக்ஸ்ட் ஸ்கிரீன் கொடுங்க சார்.
History is a living subject.
Living subject. Yes, sir.
Okay, the word history.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the aim of history.
Yes, fine, sir.
Fine. Okay, will it be all right?
All right, sir. Everything is okay, sir.
இந்த லைன்ல இருங்க. அப்படி எந்த நம்பர் உங்களுக்கு கொடுத்து பேச சொல்ல?
one number, sir. எந்த நம்பர் பேச
சார்? என்னோட நம்பர் சார் 7868.
786 இது ராஜ
என்னோட நம்பர் சார். சந்தோஷ் குமார் நம்பர் கொடுங்க சார்.
அந்த நம்பரை கொடுத்துறவா?
எஸ் சார், அந்த நம்பரை கொடுங்க சார்.
அவங்கள பேச சொல்றேன் நான்.
ஓகே சார். ஓகே.
டாக்டர் சந்தோஷ்.
Yes, sir.
உங்க பிரின்சிபல் பேர் வந்து டாக்டர் சி லதா பூர்ணம்.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay, fine, sir.
ஜெயக்குமாரி, இந்த உங்களுக்கு ஒரு நம்பர் கொடுத்துருக்கேன், அந்த நம்பர்ல நீங்க கனெக்ட் பண்ணுங்க, ஃபோன் பண்ணுங்க. வாட்ஸ்அப்ல கொடுத்துருக்கேன், சந்தோஷ்குமார் ஒரு நம்பர் கொடுத்துருக்கேன், பாருங்க. உங்க போன் ஐடி கரெக்டா உங்களுக்கு தெரிய மாட்டேங்குது.
ஓகே ஓகே.
கால் பண்ணுங்க, நீங்க கால் பண்ணுங்க, அவர் பேசுவாப்ல அந்த சந்தோஷ்குமார். பேசுறீங்களா? பேசுங்க. டீ வைக்காத. ஹலோ. இந்த பையன் இதுல போட்டு விட்டுருக்கேன், அந்த கதை கட் பண்ணி வச்சேன். அதை கட் பண்ண சொல்லேன், கட் பண்ண சொல்லேன். நம்ம இந்த கட் பண்ணிடுவோம் கொஞ்ச நேரத்துல ஸ்பீக்கரை. குட் மார்னிங் சொல்லுங்க.
Sir, principal sir.
Yeah.
Sir, for 2 minutes you can stop your share, sir.
Yeah.
After madam introducing yours, you can share, sir.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
நீங்க என்ன சொல்லல அப்படி கேட்றோம்.
Okay, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
சந்தோஷ் அவங்க கனெக்ட் ஆயிட்டாங்களா?
மேம் போன்ல பேசுறேன்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்க சார். இப்ப போன்ல ரெடியா இருக்காங்க. அப்படியே போன்ல பேசிடுவாங்க சார். உள்ள வர முடியல சார்.
சரி.
சரிங்க, ரெடியா இருக்காங்க சார் மேடம்.
சரி, ரைட்.
சார் ஸ்டாப் ஷேர் சார் ப்ளீஸ். இல்ல சார் அப்படியே இருக்கு. Sir, principal sir.
Yes sir.
No problem sir. You can wait sir. After ma'am introducing yourself, you can start sir. No problem. You no need to stop sir.
Yeah, please you just tell me when to start. I will start.
Okay, right sir.
Yeah, you just give me a signal. Father, you can proceed. Then I will start.
Right sir. Right.
Yeah, I am able to hear you.
Okay sir.
Yes.
Madam, ready are madam. Madam, hello. Madam.
Santosh. Dr. Santosh.
Sir, wait a minute sir. 2 minutes.
இல்ல இந்த இன்னொரு என்னுடைய வார்டு PhD வார்டு வந்து ஜாயின் பண்ணனும்ங்கறாங்க. அது எப்படி ஜாயின் பண்றது?
சார் 100% members வந்துட்டாங்க சார். யூடியூப்ல பார்க்கலாம் சார். we will send
வர முடியாதா?
வரல சார். யூடியூப்ல லைவ் போயிட்டு இருக்கு சார்.
லைவ் போயிட்டு இருக்குது.
ஆமா, எஸ் சார்.
சரி.
we will send the link sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
இல்ல ஃபாதர், உங்களுக்கு நான் ஃபாதருக்கு
சொல்லுங்க.
அவர் நம்பர் இருந்தா நான் யூடியூப்ல அனுப்பிக்கிறேன். நான் ஃபாதர் அவர் நம்பர் உங்களுக்கு அனுப்பிக்கவா?
உங்க நம்பர் மட்டும் அனுப்பிச்சு விட்டுருங்க.
உங்க நம்பர் அனுப்பிக்கவா? உங்க நம்பர்ல இருந்து அப்படியே ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணி விட்டுருங்க.
உங்களுக்கா? யாருக்கு? அவங்களுக்கா?
யூடியூப் நம்பர் உங்க அந்த லிங்க் உங்களுக்கு அனுப்பி வைக்கிறேன்.
ஓகே. அத அனுப்பி வைங்க, நான் ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணிடுறேன்.
ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணிருங்க நீங்க.
சரி.
வந்துருச்சுங்களா ஃபாதர்?
இந்த வாரம் செக் பண்ணிக்கிறேன். வந்துருச்சு. ஓகே.
அத அப்படியே அவர் ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணி விட்டுருங்க.
ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணிடுவா?
அது லைவ் தான் ஃபாதர்.
யா. Thank you.
Thank you ஃபாதர். சந்தோஷ் அவங்க லைன்ல இருக்காங்களா மேடம்?
Dear participants, very good morning to all. So today is the second day session of our
சொல்லுங்க
national
சார்.
FDP program.
ஹலோ சொல்லுங்க சார்.
Now I request
சார் இது ஜூம்லயே வருது சார்.
Dr.
நான்
Jaikumari
அதுதான்
madam
வரேன்.
to introduce the resource person.
அவங்க ஜூம்ல வராங்களா அப்படியே பாருங்க.
Okay ma'am, you can start ma'am.
சந்தோஷ் அவங்க ஜூம்ல வந்துட்டாங்களா?
Okay sir, ma'am பேசலாம் sir. Ma'am you can start.
Okay sir, okay sir. Good morning to all. It's my privilege to welcome and introduce today's eminent speaker, Reverend Dr. M. Arokya Swami Xavier, Principal, St. Joseph's College, Trichy. Professor formerly served as the Principal of Loyola College, Chennai. His area of specialization is modern Indian social history, American history, and historiography. He has visited more than 13 countries for sharing his expertise for the student community and gaining academic excellence. To maintain few, Canada, USA, Italy, and list goes on. He also served as Chief Editors of Indian Historical Studies from 2011 to 2016. He has participated in more than 60 seminars, conferences, and workshops at national and international level. To his credit, he has authored 9 books and co-authored 2 books. He also organized many conferences at national and international level. He rendered many consultancy services. Today, we have an eminent resource person to share his expertise in the interesting topic, objectivity in historical writing. I welcome you, sir. Now I hand over the session to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you madam. Sir, you can start now sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Distinguished Principal Dr. Lada Puranam, learned professors and officials, and dynamic organizing team coordinated by Dr. Abbas and Dr. Mugeshwari, learned participants, good morning to you all. Lockdown period propels us to continue our academic and intellectual work through webinars and online programs. I would like to congratulate the MV Muthaya Government Arts College for Women, Dindikal, for organizing this wonderful week-long national level FDP program on research methodology, tools, and techniques. It's a very timely topic and theme for not only professors, also for scholars to be equipped with research methodology and of course, understanding of history. Dear participants, I am very happy to be associated with you all through this FDP program. And it's a good occasion for me to meet you all, and of course, all of us to each other through this webinar. I sincerely appreciate Dr. C. Lada Puranam, the principal, Dr. R. Abbas, organizing secretary, Mr. Pensilla, HOD of history, Dr. B. Mugeshwari, the convener of this program, Dr. J. Kumari, coordinator, and Dr. Santosh, who is coordinating these things in an excellent manner. I really appreciate the planning went ahead before this webinar. Dear learned participants, you're all aware of the topic that I'm going to discuss it with today with you. This is objectivity in historical writings. So objectivity, historical writings is very, very important topic, as you know. Now, history is a living subject because of the debates it has created in the recent past in many countries, as you know well. It has created in the recent past, in the Indian and international scenario, but also it involves a continuous process of interaction between historian and his or her facts. An unending dialogue between the present and the past, a very familiar quote which we all know by E.H. Carr in his book, What is History? My dear participants, history was once considered a non-utility subject and discipline, but now you are all aware it's a very vibrant and exciting subject among the academicians and even in educational institutions too. As you all know, it's a living subject as it has created an unimaginable interest among other social scientists recently. It has evoked an interest and curiosity among the common people in Tamil Nadu, particularly after the recent significant archaeological excavations in Adichanallur, Kodumanal, Porundal, Keeladi, and other places. And some of you, I'm sure, would have visited these places and got excited to see these archaeological places, sites. These excavations have also increased the level of awareness of people on history tremendously. At least from our college, from St. Joseph's College, we took our students to these places, and I could see, I myself went there to visit these places. I could see the excitement and awareness the people have got, the people have developed in history, and have instilled in them an interest to preserve the historical monuments, of course, along with documents too. And thanks to the mass media for popularizing these excavations. The developments in recent decades have captured the attention of research scholars engaged in historical inquiry and have ignited their minds to carry out research on unexplored topics on societies and communities. My dear participants, historical consciousness has captured the attention of not only scholars, but also the general public, as I mentioned already. Not only here in Tamil Nadu, in India, also elsewhere in other countries. They are very much interested to know the past, of course, about their individuals and communities and nationalities that is gaining momentum in general. The pursuit of historical inquiry into the significant past in the modern world has seized the attention of many groups, particularly higher educational institutions, and very especially the historians, the students of history, scholars of history, and of course others. And these significant developments create a lot of discussions and debates among the public on history, and also throw challenges to historians. Hence, it is a living subject. I am sure you agree with me. My dear participants, after mentioning all these things, I also would like to mention, just to refresh your idea about history. History is a presentation of sequence of significant events of the past. You all know about this. Now, the word history comes from the Greek term historia. You all know about this. The very first year we studied. This means, as you all know, collection of information of unique or significant events past obtained as a result of scientific inquiry. So as you all know, sources play a very, very important role in constructing history. In any historical writings, you see three aspects or three parts. One is event, that is what had happened, that is past. Second one is knowledge about the past, that is facts or sources. Third one is interpretation and presentation of these facts in a proper manner or in a scientific order. Now, what is the aim of history? All of us know the aim of history is to get to the truth for the duty of us all, that is, we historians, is to present what actually had happened in the past. That is our duty. As historians, we have to do that. In historical researches, you do that. All the PhD scholars, they're expected to do that. Now, John B. Berry, 100 years ago, even more than that, 1901, 1902, if I'm not mistaken, he said, history is a science, no less or no more. Most of you would agree with that if you are a historian. If you are all historians, yes, we agree with that. History is a science. Am I right? Sure. History is a science as far as we historians know. Others may say something else, but still, we consider history as a science subject. Why and how? This is what we are going to discuss in this lecture, in this discussion, in this sharing. Now, before that, we have to be clear about the meaning of science. What does the word science mean? The science mean, this is taken from the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. It's very clearly given. Knowledge about the structure and behavior of the natural and physical world based on facts that can be proved by experiments. So there are three things are there. First is knowledge. Second one is the facts. Third one is experiments. So it is proved by experiments. Now you see in the picture, the scientists are busy in their lab with their experiments. Now down, you see, a scientist verifies his or her conclusions, or you can say inferences, through repeated experimentation. So they are doing again and again. That is why they are able to say that is science, that is very accurate, very accurate. Now a historian, what do we do? What do we do? A historian comes to closer to that. How? Through corroboration of several sources that he or she can check the veracity of one reference with another. So that way our subject is a science subject. You can be sure of that because it is verified. One source is verified. You see in the picture, in the slide, there are different sources. If you look at one source, if you find out one aspect, if you find out one fact, you have to verify it with other sources. You are all very familiar about the sources. Number of sources are there. All of you are very familiar. Now, literary sources are there. Non-literary sources are there. Among them, manuscripts, palm leaves, epigraphical sources, coins, copper plates, original records, documents, diaries, etc., etc. Go on like that. Now, if you want to make it science, you have to corroborate one source with another. That is very, very important. That is very, very important. And history pursues it by indirect observation, because we saw in the science, they do it directly. Whereas here, in history, we do it indirectly. We observe it indirectly. How? Namely, through eyewitnesses or through others. who have heard of it or by other methods and means. Okay, so this is what I would like to just mention as an introductory remarks. Now, coming to the topic, we have a lot of questions. Some questions I've just highlighted here. My dear learned participants, you would come across number of questions like this, okay, in this topic, objectivity in historical writings. Just I have highlighted one or few questions, fine. One is scientific history possible? Then, is it possible to present the past as it actually happened? Is it possible? Is history constructed? If so, is it in the minds of historians or in the events that had happened? Is it possible to construct an objective history? Is it possible? First of all, which means, what do you mean by objectivity in history? So these are some of the questions that I have, that I present to you for your reflection. Of course, along with you, I'm also going to reflect with you. I'm going to share it with you. Then you can ask your clarifications or doubts later. Now, meaning of objectivity. This is the meaning of the objectivity. Objectivity means mental state or quality of being objective. Quality of being objective. My dear learned participants, this means an external reality, not internal reality, not within me. It is outside of me. For example, I take this pen, or I show this slide, my cell phone. This is an object. So external reality is not within me. Fine. No, objective is derived from the word object, which is a reality external to my mind. Therefore, it is not mere thought. It's not mere invention. It's not mere intention. It is not mere imagination. It is not mere feeling or sensitivity, etc. All which are personal to my mind. So whatever I mentioned just now, these things are personal to my mind. Inward and subjective. That is what Professor Subramanian says. Beautifully, he gives the meaning of history. Now, what is objectivity? You see one quotation, you see the photograph there. This is what objectivity. By objectivity, we mean dispassionate, disinterested, and scientific treatment of all events, which would be depicted by a historian as if he was a judge pronouncing his verdict in the most impartial way without any fear or favor. That is what Mamta Agarwal says. So this is the meaning of objectivity. We mean dispassionate, disinterested, and scientific treatment. So please keep that in mind, and when we come later, you'll understand. Now, Dr. J. Job says, historical objectivity is a characteristic of modern scientific method of historical writing. So, my dear learned participants, you should understand, in the modern scientific method of historical writing, this is very, very essential, and this is what we are having it. And with this help only, we do our research. Now, one gentleman, Butterfield, says, to know objectivity well, it is necessary that we must know the difference between general history and research in history. So we should be in a position to differentiate. In fact, objectivity is the expression of history. Now, the following line is very, very important. We can save objectivity by giving supremacy to facts. So if you want to save objectivity, if you want to say that your piece of writing is an objective writing, and we should give supremacy to facts. This is what he says. No need for objectivity. Why should we have objectivity? Should there be objectivity at all? And these are some of the points. Of course, you have a number of points. I've just highlighted some of the points here. Now, objectivity in historical writing is of vital necessity on different grounds. So it is a must. It is vital. Okay, fine. Please keep that in mind. For first reason, to understand the real history only when it is written objectively. So when it is written objectively, you can see the real history. As a historian writes the history of his fellow human beings, he becomes a social agent. It is very difficult. It is very difficult, you know. We will discuss it a little later. The second point, history as a science is to reveal the truth as it is. Because science, you see, for example, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. That is science. H2O is equal to water. For me also water, for somebody else also water, for a person who is in Africa, or America, or Japan, for him also H2O is equal to water. That is science. That is truth. Fine. Now for us, for the truth derived by it should be capable of experimentation. So in that way, we need objectivity. Now, third point, history should prove itself reliable so that its authenticity should be beyond doubt. My dear learned participants, this is very, very important point. If you want your piece of writing should be authentic, it should be beyond doubt, and it should be objectively written. So this is very, very important. Now, in objectivity, you have interpretation. You see interpreting facts. You see this picture, quite interesting. And this gentleman is really confusing. For him, it is 4. For him, it is only 3. Okay. There are problems involved in this. You will see, we will discuss it later, you know. And in this picture, you see 6. For him, it is 6. For him, it is 9. So how do you interpret? Of course, there are issues. And that's what we are going to just discuss something. Now, essentials of objectivity. To emerge as a successful historian, it is essential to cultivate the habits of objectivity. Now, if you want to be a successful historian, good historian, and you need the habits of, you have to cultivate the habits of objectivity. Not only objectivity, along with that, criticism. Along with that, analysis and balanced approach. Certain factors can contribute to objectivity. Now, first point. First of all, we should possess curiosity to gather the information from all possible sources. My dear learned professors and dear scholars, if you want to write a piece of article in an objective way, we should collect all possible sources. This is what they insist. This is what, as historians, we have to insist on our scholars. And scholars also should be interested, should be curious to gather information, sources from all places, whatever way possible. Now, historical data are furnished by archaeological or literary sources that are found at different places at different times in several languages. It will be very, very useful. It is necessary to collect all this data for the purpose of writing a research work. Second point, however, as all this, it should be incorporated into the work. What is incorporated should be adequately worthy and representative. The historian should possess a critical spirit for a scientific analysis. The second point is very, very important. Of course, you have collected all sources, fine, you know, but a historian should have a critical spirit for a scientific analysis. Third point, you should have, he or she should have, should cultivate a historical sense, so that he or she can see a character, event, or trend in its real setting. Okay, otherwise he or she will miss this aspect. This aspect is very, very important. In the process of writing, he or she is to display an ability to not to allow his subjective consideration to blur his vision. Okay, this is another point, because if you are having subjective elements aspect, no, you will not be able to bring out. Fine. So these are important 4 points, so that you can come to the generalizations, conclusions, all those based on data, sources, and critical analysis. Objectively, you can write. Fine. Now, objectivity in historical writing. So this is what we would like to speak for some time. Maybe just for 10 or 15 minutes we'll speak. Afterwards, you can interact with me, or all of us can share your ideas also. So objectivity is, in historical writing, is of capital importance for the growth of historical studies on healthy lines. You know, it is very, very important. Until recent times, the explanation for historical developments was sought not from an objective search for truth in history, but other points of view. You know, for the past 200 years only, this line of thinking is coming up very fast, very good, on healthy lines. Earlier, it was not so. For example, it was the historical works were written from the points of view of mythology or theology or philosophy or sometimes ideology. Fine. Now it is changing. It is changing. Particularly last century, it was totally changed, and you could see when you read a standard good historical piece of writing, you can understand very well. Objectivity contributed to historical critical study of history and objective writing, which in turn helped in the emergence of history as a scientific and independent branch of knowledge. My dear participants, earlier history was not an independent branch of knowledge, as you all know. It was part of literature, like that, okay, or part of theology, like that it was considered. But when all these scientific developments developed, particularly in with regard to the objectivity, all those things, sources or critical analysis, all those things, now history has become an independent branch of knowledge, which we are very proud of. Now, historical objectivity stands for what is true and the real. It's true. Historical knowledge should be true and real. It implies the state of being free from personal bias and sentimental approach. Every one of us, I will come to the point maybe in a few minutes time, we are always bound by some considerations. Fine. That is why being one-sided, personal, partial, all those things are happening. Now, last line, while truth plays a decisive role in objective history, prejudice in subjective history. Most of us have got prejudice in your mind regarding communities, or nationalities, or events, or developments, political developments, all those things. So accordingly, we also write the historical piece of writings. Fine. See, this is wonderful quotation I've taken from Jagannath Sarkar, the father of modern scientific historiography in India. Beautiful quotation you can take down. He says, I quote, I would not care whether truth is pleasant or unpleasant, and in consonance with or opposed to current views. He says, I would not mind the least whether the truth is or is not a blow to the glory of my country. If necessary, I shall bear in patience the ridicule, the slander of friends and society for the sake of truth. The last line is very, very important, but still I shall seek truth, understand truth, and accept truth. So this is what the great scholar's mind, who seeks truth, who would be an objective historian. So we have to understand this point very much. So ultimately, already we have seen the previous slide that the aim of history is to find out truth. So he also announces the same, articulates the same, and proclaims the same. He says, I shall seek truth, understand truth, and accept truth. In that way, Jadunath Sarkar is rightly called the father of modern scientific historiography in India. Now, once again, the same, more or less same qualities are given by Dr. Ambedkar. When I read Dr. Ambedkar's writings and speeches, I came across this piece of writing. Now, he has qualities of a historian. If you want to be a good historian, you should possess all these qualities. Now, he says, a historian ought to be exact, correct, exact, sincere, very sincere, and impartial, not being biased, all those things. Free from passion, unbiased by interest, fear, resentment, or affection. So you just carefully read this one paragraph, it's beautifully written. So all these qualities we should possess. He says, and faithful to the truth, which is the mother of history. Faithful to the truth, which is the mother of history. The previous slide also we saw the quotation from Jadunath Sarkar, the more or less same thing he says in different words. The preserver of great actions, who? A historian. The enemy of oblivion, the witness of the past, and the director of the future. So he has picturized a historian should be like this, like this. In short, he must have an open end, though it may not be an empty mind, and readiness to examine all evidences, even though it is spurious. So a historian should be ready to examine all sources, all evidences. No, whatever evidences, sources we collect from here and there, we have to examine thoroughly so that we will be an objective historian. That's what he says. He expects a historian should be like this. He should possess all these qualities. Beautifully, he has brought out in his writings and speeches, volume 7. If you have time, you can later refer. Beautiful quotation about a good historian. Good historian. Now, next point, bias and subjectivity. Bias and subjectivity. Despite the importance of objectivity for history, it is not always followed. So I explained to you about the objectivity, the qualities of historian, all those things, fine. But is it possible? I doubt. That is what you are going to see some slides this point. What is this? An interpretation that is accepted as true by one generation is considered as out of date by another. Don't problem is there. This is because what is written is related to the taste, prejudices, customs, and commitment of the writer. You see? So these are some of the problems. You see, subjectivity. So this is just, you can understand from this picture what is subjectivity and what is subjectivity. Okay. He says, this gentleman says, objectivity, those are oranges. Fine, he says. That's objectivity. It's an object for him, fine. But and the other person says, I love oranges. Fine. This is feeling, all those things I explained to you. Yeah. Now coming to this slide, once G.M. Trevelyan, a famous historian, said, when one writes, he or she is present in his or her work. How? With his whole personality, with his temperament, with his reason, and with his group consciousness. That is why subjectivity occurs. That is why we are subjective. That is why we are not able to give exact picture of the history, what had happened earlier. Now, a historian, before he or she begins to write history, he is the product of history. My dear participants, learned professors, you all know we are products of that particular point of time, that history. Okay, so we are living in this 21st century. So we are the products of this century, not the 3rd century or 4th century AD or BC. Okay, fine. So which means our thinking, our mindset, worldview, all those are shaped by this time. That's what we are going to see. The thought of the historian, as of other human beings, is molded by the environment of the time and place. So two things are very, very important. We are molded by the environment of the time and the environment of place. So you all agree with me. This is very famous, everybody knows. Historian, being an individual, is also a product of history, not only time and place, but also society. I'm living in a particular society, in this place, in Tamil Nadu, okay, in India. So I am a product of this place, this area, this country, this nationality, this linguistic group. So when I am a product of this society, naturally, my thinking will be shaped, or at least I tend to look at that, the history from that point of view. Now, E.H. Carr once said, before you study the historian, study his historical and social background. This is very, very important. Yes. So, my dear scholars, when you choose a historian, when you choose his or her book, and you also should know about his historical and social background, then you will understand better his writings. That's what he says. That's the meaning of this quotation. The same thing. Historian is a social being. Yes, already we have seen. The last point, the present can and does influence our knowledge of the past. So this is one factor that we should be aware of these things. We should be aware of these things. Fine. Every historian has his own likes, tastes, aptitude, and preferences. My dear participants, you take any historian for that matter, he or she will have his own, all these things. That is why the element of subjectivity enters every step in the process of investigation, in the process of historical inquiry. So from the start, you have subjectivity. But how to overcome? We should be aware of that. That is what we are discussing. So that's what it is mentioned down. The different processes involved in historical writings give considerable scope for subjectivity. Everywhere, in each state, in each stage of historical writings, from the start of the selection of the subject till the writing part, you have subjectivity that you have to keep in mind. Subjectivity arises from the forms of prejudice and many aspects. What are the elements? You are given. There are elements there. There are partisan attitude, ideological consideration, political commitment, and other group prejudice. Okay, so all those things are there. Even down ideological consideration, you have number of things: theological, philosophical and materialistic. Of course, other things, political commitment is there due to loyalty, political loyalty and political obligation. All those things are there. Fine. You have to consider all these things. We should be aware of all these things. Also, ignorance, fear, motivation. So all these things are self-interest, economic motivation is there to gain money or goods or political motivation to gain power. So all these things are there. Now you can understand. So from all these areas, the subjectivity can come. For example, starting from one's perspective, ignorance, fear, or favor, motivation, historian's personality, one's background, one's worldview, taste, temperament, all these things personal. Okay, it is in me, Okay, or I would like to, get favor from somebody. So for him, accordingly, I write. Now earlier we used to listen to our Tamil scholars that one king or emperor would like to ask his poet to write about himself. He glorifies him or as okay. Such things. I won't say this doesn't happen today. Now it also a part of today's historical writings. You have number of evidences, examples. Fine. Now another aspects. These are ideological considerations. Okay, fine. National pride or patriotic zeal, that also cause for subjectivity. So we should be aware of that. If a historian would like to be objective historian, he should be aware of that. Customs, environment, okay, political loyalty or commitment, intellectual bias, okay, philosophical or theological reasons are there, the historian's reasons. Fine. Group prejudices, consciousness, and linguistic inclinations. All these factors are part of the historian's subjectivity. Okay, if historian is subjective, any one of the aspects or many aspects could be reasons for that. Now, after discussing all these things, now coming back once again, can a historian get the complete image of the past with the help of the sources available to him? Is it possible? Is it possible? I don't think so. There are problems. Yes. Now, why I'm bringing all these issues here? A historian or the scholars should be aware of all these things. Fine. Only a part of what was observed in the past was remembered. You know this famous quotation. A part of what was remembered was recorded. Only a small part is recorded. And only a small part is survived. And again, once again, only a small part is capturing the attention of the historian. Once again, small part is grasped and afterwards expounded and narrated by historian. So after all these stages, now only historical piece is coming. If you are going to write historical piece, all these things are okay, fine. Yeah. Now, any questions, please? Now, coming to Tirukkural, he says beautifully, Tirukkural 423, 423. Discern the truth in everything by whomever spoken, this is wisdom. So you have to keep that in mind. So this is beautifully mentioned. Yeah. Now towards attaining objectivity, now we may not have time. I've given some highlights. Maybe we can skip all these things. We'll go to the conclusion. After discussions, maybe I will come back to you. Now, some are attempts, initiatives from different perspectives. So these are some I have given some important personalities, not important historians. Historians we know, some schools of thought from different areas I've taken. Of course, many others are there. You cannot exhaust all the historians and all the thinkers who have changed the course of history are who have helped really attaining objectivity in historical writing. Just a few. One is after the age of after the Enlightenment era, you can see this development. You can see the development. For example, René Descartes. He was a very famous mathematician, turned to be a historian or philosopher. He only said, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I exist. This is what he said. So he gave some direction. Fine. Like that, many. John Locke. No? Then Edward Gibbon, one of the famous historian. Okay, fine. Of the Enlightenment era. All these people are known. People are there. Just I would like to highlight, and we will conclude this one. Renaissance, age of reasons. From Renaissance, you could see the real difference. The Renaissance displayed a critical spirit. From then on, an objective attitude came in the historical writing. That is very, very important. So sources of information came in for critical study. Area of interest widened so as to include such matters as the people, system of philosophy, and progress of civilization. Then only there was an interest created in the minds of people and historians and philosophers. They started looking at subjects, particularly societies, all those things. Fine. Now, modern historical writing in spirit and method is largely product of the era of Enlightenment. Historical composition played a great part in the mature phases of Enlightenment, seabed of modern mind. So after Enlightenment, the historians and philosophers started reflecting how to look at the writings objectively. So this is one aspect. Machiavelli, René Descartes, and other persons. You see Edward Gibbon. Gibbon was one of the very, very famous, as you all know. Just below, I have just underlined one line. It is very, very important. As a historian, he was never contented with the second-hand accounts when primary sources were available. Yes. He bestowed attention upon all details, analysis, criticism, and accuracy. That was Edward Gibbon. That is who contributed a lot to this objectivity in historical writing. And he was able to analyze historical evidences thoroughly, that to first-hand information. Yes. Auguste Comte. So this is Auguste Comte. You can see a very, very eminent sociologist. He also gave change, and he emphasized the same thing. He was who? It was he who introduced socio-historical phenomena, came to be called phenomenological. So all these things are there. You can study later. Now, once again, Hegel. Hegel was the romantic idealist movement. So he also gave a lot of things to history. And just I mentioned, you can read it later. If you have doubt, we will discuss it later. Fine. Once again, Karl Marx is another famous, very famous person. The way of looking at history was from the point of view of economics, the materialistic understanding or materialistic interpretation of history. That is his point of view. But objectively he tried, but also some criticism was there. Now this is, you all know, Antonio Gramsci, the subaltern studies. He was taking little paradigm shift from the Marxian understanding. He came to the subaltern studies. So the subaltern studies, he started looking at the history from the below. You're familiar. And he also wanted to give importance to all the segments, particularly the subordinate groups, all those people. Fine. Then Annal School came. Fine. They attempted to have a comprehensive study history. Of course, they also had some objective writings, all these things, annal schools. Then came the American New History. They also advocated a history that was comprehensive rather than specialized one, explanatory rather than descriptive, and analytical rather than episodic. So they also want to study, analyze history. Yeah. So these are some of the points. Now, conclusion. My dear participants, history came to be recognized as a science. It means to analyze critically all sources, all evidences of the events in which he is interested. History is not written by copying out the testimony of the best sources, but by coming to your own conclusions. So we have to understand the modern concept of history as an autonomous science characterized by the past-present continuum rests completely on the process of criticism. So this point we have to take. Now, objectivity required in 5 areas. One is selection of the topic, collection of sources, choosing the sources. 4th one is interpretation of historical facts or the sources. 5th one is presentation or in the final synthesis or the writing part. Okay, fine. Now, I would like to conclude. Since history is science, historians should aim at presenting the facts with much accuracy. A historian is a social being, subject himself. He himself is a subject. Objectivity is not possible totally as in science, 100%. But of course, we can aim for greater. Need to collect and exhaust all available sources on the topic, on the theme. Now, we also have to constantly scrutinize our thoughts while writing and presenting the facts. Sheikh Ali would say, if history is to fulfill the task of holding up a mirror to the past, a historian should be as objective as possible. Thank you. If you have any questions, you are most welcome. Yes.
Sir, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
So, dear participants, do you have any questions? Please ask your questions through chat box.
Five participants raised their hands. Yeah. Dr. Santosh, I don't get any questions. Do you get? Have you received anything?
No, sir, everything.
But they have raised, 3 of them, 4 of them raised their hands.
Yes, sir, but I cannot unmute them. Everyone sending thank you.
Wishes only, sir.
Wishes,
Thank you.
wishes
Very
only,
good
sir.
session, highly informative.
Like that only, sir. Everyone sending the.
Oh, I see. Okay. Any questions?
Dear participants, do you have any questions? Please ask your questions through chat box.
Okay.
Send your question through chat.
Sir, one question.
Yeah, please, most welcome.
Is it necessary?
Yeah, please.
wait.
Just a minute, sir.
Is it necessary a hypothesis in historical research, sir?
Hypothesis?
In historical research.
Yeah, very good question. Very good. Thank you. Yes, you should have a hypothesis. No, hypothesis is a preliminary understanding about the topic which you are going to do. Okay, fine. Without hypothesis, you cannot plunge or get into the research. Fine. At least some preliminary understanding about the topic or the theme on which you are going to do your research is called hypothesis. And you have, in a nutshell, you are bringing out in a hypothesis form. You should have. It is better. It is better, and you should have. Yeah. And of course, you can change. Afterwards, once you collect your evidences, sources, facts, all those things, even your writings or your findings can be just opposite to your hypothesis, which you propose in the initial stage. Okay. Yeah.
Sir, one more question, sir.
Yeah, please, most welcome.
Sir, how do we cross-check and verify which historian is giving the correct version? How are the standards in the historical writing?
Oh, okay, very good. Yeah, quite interesting. Now, how do you check? I also do not know. Unless you know their standard, the worth. No, unless you read all their volumes, all their works, no, then only you will come to understand. And I'm sure as you read, you know the worth of their works. Okay, whether they have given you the correct version or they have given you a good historical piece of writing. All those things you will understand naturally. Yeah, this is you will get this one by experience, by exercise, by experience. As you read more and more, you will understand. Yes.
Sir, everyone is asking your PPT, sir, your presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Now I will pass it on to you. Maybe after 2 days. I will just one or two small errors are there. I will correct and send it to you, Santosh.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Will that be all right?
Everything okay, sir.
Fine. Very good. Fine.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, once again, I would like to thank all of you, dear Dr. Abbas. Dr. Abbas contacted me, and I was very happy to be associated with you in this webinar. And I would like to sincerely thank each and every one of you, particularly Dr. Abbas and Dr. Santosh, and of course, Dr. Principal, Madam, and everybody. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Abbas, sir, you can start, sir.
Unmute yourself, sir. Sir, Abbas, sir, unmute yourself.
Yeah, Abbas, sir, kek raha hai, don't?
Yes, sir. Abbas, sir, unmute. Sir, Abbas, sir, unmute yourself.
വന്നിട്ട് ഇതെന്താ പറഞ്ഞു Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
On behalf of our college, I express my heartfelt thanks to our Honorable Chief Guest, Father R.A. Xavier, the Principal, St. Joseph College, Trichy, Tamil Nadu. I would like to thank all representation you have placed with your presence. And I also thanks the organizing team and the staff members for their support. I would also like to thank our technical team. Without you, this online program would not have been possible. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, now I share the feedback to all of you. Please fill the feedback form and submit.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Father, sir.
Unmute yourself, sir.
Dear participants, please.
Fill the feedback form. We will send.
It is available in our chat.
It is available in the WhatsApp chat also.
അതാണ് അടച്ചോട്.